Okay, this is the case which we did in the morning. This is the huge aortic aneurysm with bilateral aortoiliac aneurysm, and the left iliac is occluded. Next. And what we have is a left renal artery stenosis, and this is a small kidney, you can see. So it is a non-functioning kidney. Next. And then we also had a bilateral external iliac stenosis, and there was the internal iliac stenosis. Minus. So we showed you the procedure where we implanted a 23 millimeter Gore graft. Minus. We implanted a 23 millimeter Gore graft. Oh, next. And we had the main limb and the contralateral limb, and we had this was falling short, so we had two extensions. And this is the final result which we wanted to show you, which we did in the morning. There's a good sealing at the infrarenal part, and there's a good sealing in the infrarenal part. We have dilated the external iliac arteries, and there is no endo leak as of now. So this is the case which we did in the morning, and it turned out to be very well. Patient is fine. And now we'll show you the case which I did last night, me and my surgical colleague, Dr. Ganju. We did last night at around 3 o'clock. And this is the patient, this is the patient interesting patient who is 45 years old and had a mitral stenosis. But the interesting thing was when he came to us, there was a murmur in the back, and this was a continuous murmur, and the patient was deeply cyanosed. We did a saturation. The saturation was 70%, and I'm just going to show you the film which we did last night. Can we run through the film? Your film दिखाओ उसको. उसको बोलो film दिखाए. Run the film. Okay, so you can see the film. This is the patient. You can see he's got a central cyanosis. He's got a deep cyanosis in the central part. He's got bilateral clubbing, and clubbing in the upper extremities as well as the lower extremities. And this was very interesting because we have never seen a mitral stenosis with this sort of a pulmonary AV fistula. His echo was done, and his echo revealed, you can see the clubbing, his echo revealed mitral stenosis. He had calcified mitral leaflets and a subvalvular disease. So we thought we did a CT angio. CT angio confirmed the finding. We thought instead of a lobectomy, let's try to seal this fistula with a vascular plug, and instead of coiling, and then treat the mitral stenosis either surgically or by balloon dilatation. So then we took this patient. This is last night at around 3 o'clock. You can see the saturation of this patient. He's got a saturation of 70% and a heart rate of about 127. He was definitely in heart failure. We calculated the shunt. There was a right to left shunt, and it was about 3.5, and the arterial saturation in the femoral artery was about 70 to 72%. So then we took the patient in, and I'm now going to show you what we did in the cath lab. This is the first. This is the angiogram which we did. Interestingly, when I punctured the femoral artery, we had a very feeble femoral artery, and we thought, maybe we are puncturing the vein, but we were actually going into the artery, and the pressure in the artery was low, and so I thought that it could be an arterial disease as well. Next. So I did an aortogram, and you see that the aorta is fine. Next. But this patient had a left common iliac occlusion and a right common external iliac stenosis. You can see so many retroperitoneal collaterals feeding both the external iliac arteries. So once we got an arterial access, then we punctured the vein. Next. Next. And we got through into the left pulmonary artery. Next. Left lower lobe pulmonary artery. And with the wire we went deeper. Next. This is an angiogram of the left lower lobe pulmonary artery, and this you can see there is a direct communication from the pulmonary artery into the left pulmonary vein, which measures about 26 millimeter, which is a hugely dilated left pulmonary vein. On the CT, the left lower pulmonary artery measured about 12 millimeter in diameter. Next. These are different pictures of the same sort of injection in the left lower pulmonary artery. Next. Then we went up to the lingular lobe and tried to select the arteries which is providing the maximum collateral, maximum AV fistulas. This is a non-subtraction image where you can see how it is almost like a AV malformation rather than it's like a AV fistula rather than an AV malformation. Next. So this is the lingular lobe. It also feeds a small, it has a small fistula which goes into the pulmonary artery, but it's not much. Next. So then we wanted to occlude this bifurcation. Next, so we took a Swan-Ganz catheter, passed in a wire, and parked the wire into the lower and outer vessel. Next. And now we passed a sheath. This is a 6 French sheath, and we thought this 6 French sheath would take a 16 millimeter vascular plug from the Amplatzer, and we thought it will reach to that level, but actually this fell short. And in the night, we did not have a 85 centimeter long 6 French arrow sheath. So what I thought, as per the compatibility, this device goes in a 6 French sheath or a 8 French guiding catheter. We had a 9 French 85 centimeter sheath. Next. So we took this 9 French 85 centimeter sheath, and we could pass the sheath all the way up to where we wanted, all the way into the left lower pulmonary artery. Next. So we are there where we wanted to park the sheath. Next. We checked, did an angiogram. We were actually at distal to where we wanted to embolize. Next. So this is the sheath in position. And then we tried to pass in the vascular plug. And this vascular plug actually has the same sort of a mechanism as the Amplatzer device. It has a screw, and this device is sort of a nitinol, 3-piece nitinol device, and it has a sealing at 6 points. And it actually, you can extend this, and it goes to the lesion. You can check your flow, and if you are not satisfied, you can actually retrieve the full device before releasing it. So surprisingly, when we were going up with the device in a 9 French sheath, which actually goes in a 6 French sheath, as per the label, this device would not go up, and we had to push it through with the help of a multi-purpose diagnostic catheter, you can see, but the device wouldn't go up. And so we sort of tried for about 20 minutes, and we were not even sure what's happening. A colleague, Dr. Malik, gave me an idea. Maybe this device is partially expanding into the sheath and is creating a lot of friction. And so I think that is right at 3 o'clock in the night. So we went back. Next. Next. So we went back, did the same procedure, minus job, and went this time with a 9 French right coronary guiding catheter from Cook's. Next. And see how easily the device went all the way down to the left lower pulmonary artery. Now once we were in the position, we withdrew this guiding catheter back. Next. And then delivered the device, and we weren't very satisfied because it was not in the right branch. There was a huge fistula, and the saturations did not actually come down. Next. So we retrieved the device. This is, you can see, we can retrieve the full device after deployment before releasing it, and we retrieved it. Next. Then went again to the right branch. Next. So we are deep where we wanted to be, and this time we got the device in this position. Next. Okay, Rana. So we got the device in the right position. We could see that we have entered the main vessel. We waited. It takes about 10 minutes to 15 minutes for the flow to come down, but we were in the right place. There is one small branch which feeds the collaterals also, a fistula there, but it also feeds the lung. So we didn't want to go proximally. We deployed the device here, and we thought that we are going to embolize the other vessel.